Welcome everybody. I want to take you on a quick walk here on the outskirts of Shanghai. So this is pretty rural already. This is where families are living, and it's not downtown Shanghai, no skyscrapers, and this is where companies like NIO don't have a big footprint, to be honest, but it's composing a big part of the Chinese middle class. But the topic of this video will be quite different. I want to talk about Li Bin's bullishness on profitability in Q4, and not only has he said so during the earnings call, right, but he's just reiterated that I think maybe yesterday in a video, like he was on stage somewhere, and some reporters have asked him why he is so confident in NIO turning a profit in a quarter, like in the Q4, right, in a single quarter. And obviously we have a couple of big calls out there on the future of NIO. One is about the profitability in Q4, and the other one is the sales targets, right, doubling sales targets this year. And people are tracking the sales mainly and are not very confident about the NIO sales and Onvo sales currently, so they don't think Li Bin will manage to get to this 100% year-over-year growth target. Now, in this latest video, Li Bin mentioned that he's bullish on the profitability metric. I'm not sure if he also confirmed this or bullishness on the sales metric, but he was quoting or giving the argument that NIO will be doing well because we have such good cars and models upcoming, and it's a very important year for the relaunch of the models, for the ET9, and also for the Onvo brand, which will have more growth and also more models coming up, right? So he's basing the profitability target on the growth metric again, right? So that's interesting for one. He also mentioned another tiny bit, which was about ET9 gross margin, so the vehicle margin generally, so meaning it's contributing more per vehicle sold. Let's say ET9 is worth several Onvos sold in terms of vehicle margin and gross margin contribution, right? That's all true, but I want to discuss my personal expectations here and how I see these comments by Li Bin here. One thing I checked recently was the annual report by NIO that was filed for the year of 2024. And it's always a massive report. And in there is one section that I looked up specifically because I told you about that in a couple of previous videos and in my live streams, which was about the regulatory NEV credits. So those kind of carbon emission trading credits that can be sold between vehicle makers. Those who have not enough EVs need to gather those NEV credits in order to be compliant, or else face big fines, right? So these credits are worth money. And I mentioned, like in my live streams in past videos, that I don't see any mention of these credits recently. Now, in this annual report, there's a section which is explaining what those credits are and the rules around that. And they also have a tiny remark around how many of them they have sold so far. And well, unfortunately, I'm now on the street. I cannot really quote that figure. I'll maybe put it in the comment section or so. I don't think I will edit this video in a sense that I give you the exact screenshot. But long story short, I think the amount that NIO has mentioned in there is so tiny that I don't think that this is really a number where we should assume that NIO has sold their accumulated NEV credits as of now. They did mention some of those NEV credits being sold in the past, like in earnings reports, but then nothing more, just silence. And now in this annual report, they give a number which is, I think, even something like 2 million, 7 million US dollar as a figure. If you compare that to, for example, what Tesla is selling in NEV credits. And note, these are different NEV credits sometimes. So Tesla's mainly selling also overseas, right? So that's a different credits trading system as well. And for Chinese, for NIO, it's mainly Chinese credit systems, right? But still, I mean, we know of the importance of those NEV credits for Tesla earnings. They sometimes really are moving the needle between being profitable and not being profitable. And in the past, for NIO, sometimes they contributed significantly to other sales as well. Well, now, with this low figure, my assumption is that NIO has been stockpiling those credits, because we see that NIO sales have gone up in the last couple of years significantly, so they're selling on a much higher volume now, but there was not much more mention of those NAV credits being sold, and the number in this annual report is simply so low that my conclusion is they haven't monetized those NAV credits yet. So I've talked about this matter in the past, and I just think now, in the context of talking about potential profitability, we need to reiterate this potential catalyst here. And I think, well, based on my current assumption here, and that's not financial advice, and I could be wrong, go and read the report for yourself. It's always interesting as an investor. My final conduct here right now is that they have been stockpiling them, and they are not on a balance sheet and not monetized as other income yet, and this might actually help them in a quarter like Q4 in order to break even. If they want to do that, they could be accumulating them in order to make a strategic deal with a partner in the future. Might be about battery swapping, might be about something else in, automotive OEM deal somehow, where maybe a legacy maker, let's say, I'm just picking here, Changan, Chery, or somebody who's producing more gasoline oil internal combustion engine cars, that they might need those credits. And then NIO comes in and gets something for it, maybe monetary, but maybe also something else. And I think that's the big potential, because, if they're realizing them, once they are really monetizing them, in that second, this will be 100% margin income, okay? There will be, nothing spent for it. So it's really driving a net contribution there on the bottom line. And that's great. So that's one driver. The second one, there have also been some rumors around this in the past few days, and I haven't commented on that yet, but the situation with 47 and McLaren, basically now becoming the McLaren hood, and 47 underneath the company, the same investor like NIO, the Abu Dhabi government, and we have this license agreement in place between NIO and those 47 ventures. Therefore, I think we can expect still some R&D contribution coming from 47, license fees, royalties that will be high margin as well. And there is the rumor that this will make up $1 billion USD. It's unverified, but I also still think that this is a no-brainer, and that should happen. If you just read the filings, if you just look at the situation, I don't think there's a reason why this shouldn't be coming at some point. And in the recent earnings report, we actually got some hint for that, because they were speaking for the first time that they have realized also some real development fees coming from another OEM, but that was more related to the battery swapping partnerships, I assume, and it wasn't in a very big way. So far, no mentions of any of these license fees in some of the NIO earnings reports. Also leads me to conclude that they have not been part of the other sales yet, only maybe some of these battery swapping partnerships, which also may contribute to some, NIO consulting those other OEM, how to integrate battery swapping into the vehicle chassis and stuff like that, using some of their R&D, using some of their patents, possibly stuff like that. But the really big part here might be coming from the McLaren 4.7 license deal at some point in time. I think they also have some legal things to adhere to, compliance things, as you know, the investors are the same with Abu Dhabi in both 4.7/McLaren and NIO. They cannot, just contribute money at free will. There needs to be some underlying real development of cars and technology being used by NIO, but I see that happening. Again, a second source of high margin profits or profit contributors that I believe will be coming, and possibly all of them or some of them might be booked in Q4, helping NIO. And I think, coming back to Li Bin and why he's so bullish on breaking even, I think that's the real reason why he might be so outgoing speaking about the profitability. Coming back to my personal expectations though, I have to say, in my business case, I'm not even assuming any of those. I'm not assuming what Li Bin says, the driver will be 100% year-over-year growth. And I don't calculate even with those NEV credits and other sales being pumped up by R&D. I think by R&D licensing fees. I think it is possible for NIO to break even with a slightly more moderate growth that, in my opinion, is more realistic. In conjunction with, have not a cost structure that is going out of this world. Basically, the relation that I'm always watching on the earnings, the KPI between SG&A, so the marketing, general administrative parts of the balance sheet and so on, or financial reports, in relation to cars being sold, will not go in a direction that it's kind of making it impossible for NIO to go out of profitability. So, long story short, again, I think Li Bin is bullish on the Q4 profitability because he knows what's also possible with some very high margin on top fees and NEV credit sales being executed, giving him kind of a cushion even if the sales are not that great. And in my personal views, even the year-over-year 100% growth target not being necessary in order to break even at some point in Q4, and even without those extra incomes. I'll be making a separate video on my assumptions on Q4 on those sales figures as well as on the cost side to give you more clarity on that. Just want to put it out there. And so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little walk here through a suburb of Shanghai. Not the most fancy part. Well, here are a few little skyscrapers here, but it's rather very, very urban, where the evolving middle class is living. Some BYD here, but other than that, it's also a lot of gasoline cars still here. So this is the opportunity here also, especially for Envo. Haven't seen an Envo yet here, but people here need to switch to EV only, in my opinion, and they will at some point. They might even have some home charging here. Well, no, if I look at the parking, not so sure about that, but I'll check if there's a battery swap station close by. See you in my next video.